The film opens with a tense and haunting sequence set in the late Goryeo Dynasty, a time of political instability, where the kingdom is on the verge of collapse due to internal corruption and external threats. King Gongmin, played by Jo In-sung, is the young ruler of Goryeo, struggling to assert control over his court and secure his reign amidst constant challenges. His queen, Queen Noguk, played by Song Ji-hyo, is a powerful figure in the court, but her marriage to the king remains loveless and fraught with complications. From the outset, the film establishes a cold, oppressive atmosphere, mirroring the emotional and political chill in the royal palace. The king, despite his power, has a troubled relationship with his wife. The queen is a beautiful, strong-willed woman, but she has never been able to bear children for the king. This lack of an heir is a significant source of tension, as it threatens the stability of the dynasty. King Gongmin's personal frustrations with his marriage are compounded by the pressure from his court and advisors, who are eager for him to produce a male heir. The queen, although capable and intelligent, is unable to fulfill this duty, which leads the king to become more distant and despondent. Amidst this backdrop of royal dissatisfaction, we are introduced to the king's closest confidant, his loyal bodyguard and captain of the royal guards, Han Lim, played by Joo Ji-mo. Han Lim is a man of great physical prowess and loyalty who has served the king faithfully for years. However, beneath his exterior of duty, Han Lim harbors a deep, secret love for the king. This unspoken love, complicated by their master-servant relationship, creates a simmering undercurrent of tension that will ultimately drive the tragic events of the film. As the narrative unfolds, the king, desperate for an heir, turns to his trusted bodyguard Han Lim for an extraordinary request. He asks Han Lim to impregnate the queen in his stead. In this moment of intense personal conflict, Han Lim is torn between his loyalty to the king and his own hidden desires. The film explores this moment as a pivotal turning point, where love, duty, and power collide in a dangerous and complicated triangle. At the heart of A Frozen Flower is the deeply forbidden relationship between Han Lim and the queen. Initially, their interactions are distant, cold, and formal. However, as the plot progresses and Han Lim is summoned to the queen's chambers to fulfill the king's wishes, the two begin to develop an intense and passionate connection. Despite the political and emotional constraints they face, they are drawn to each other in a way that transcends their circumstances. The queen, who has always felt emotionally neglected by her husband, finds solace in Han Lim's presence, while Han Lim's growing affection for her becomes increasingly difficult to suppress. The king's request begins to erode the boundaries of the palace's rigid rules and expectations. The queen, who has never known true affection from her husband, gradually becomes entangled in Han Lim's affection. Their physical and emotional intimacy becomes a silent rebellion against the roles they are assigned by the court. What starts as a practical arrangement to secure an heir transforms into an illicit love affair that defies the strictures of their station. However, their love is not without consequence. As Han Lim and the queen's affair deepens, the political implications of their actions become more dire. The king, already struggling with insecurity and discontent, soon learns of their relationship. Consumed by jealousy and rage, the king's sense of control over his court and his love for Han Lim disintegrates, leading him to make a series of reckless decisions. The political stakes of the story escalate when a plot to assassinate the king is uncovered. As the king's paranoia deepens, he becomes more erratic and tyrannical. He begins to see threats everywhere, and soon, the palace is consumed by suspicion and betrayal. His once loyal bodyguard, Han Lim, finds himself increasingly alienated from the man he has served for so long. The court, rife with intrigue and power struggles, becomes the setting for a tragic downward spiral. Han Lim, caught between his love for the queen and his devotion to the king, begins to unravel emotionally. The tension between duty and love becomes unbearable, and Han Lim's internal conflict leads to tragic consequences. The king, upon realizing the depth of the betrayal, takes drastic action. The lives of all those involved are forever altered as the walls of the palace become suffused with blood, guilt, and loss. The film culminates in a tragic confrontation where all the characters are forced to face the harsh realities of their actions. Han Lim, who has lost everything in his pursuit of love, finds himself in a position of extreme vulnerability. The Queen, too, is left to reckon with the devastation caused by her choices. The King, once a figure of immense power, is ultimately brought low by his own insecurities and destructive decisions. At its core, A Frozen Flower is a meditation on the complex interplay between power, desire, and loyalty. The film explores the idea that love and loyalty are not simple, straightforward concepts, especially in a world where personal feelings are constantly in conflict with duty and obligation. The tension between Han Lim's love for the king and his desire for the queen symbolizes the broader political conflicts of the time. Han Lim's loyalty to the king is tested by his growing affection for the queen, which leads him into dangerous territory. The film portrays the idea that in such a rigidly hierarchical and power-driven world, personal feelings are often marginalized or repressed, only to manifest in destructive ways. In addition to these themes, A Frozen Flower also delves deeply into the idea of identity and agency. The queen, though a powerful figure in the court, is ultimately a woman who has very little control over her own fate. Her duty as a queen is to produce an heir, and her worth is measured by her ability to fulfill this role. Similarly, Han Lim, despite his power and loyalty, is bound by his role as a servant, unable to act on his desires without risking everything. Visually, the film is marked by a stark, melancholic beauty. The cold, muted color palette and the dimly lit sets convey a sense of isolation and repression. The costumes, while period-appropriate, are often muted, emphasizing the emotional austerity of the characters' lives. The film's soundtrack, a haunting mix of classical and traditional Korean music, underscores the emotional intensity of the narrative. The film's pacing, though deliberate and slow, builds a sense of dread and inevitability. The tension between the characters is palpable, and the viewer is drawn into their internal struggles, feeling the weight of their choices. The tone is one of tragic inevitability, with each character's fate seemingly sealed from the moment they are introduced. Frozen Flower is a poignant and intense exploration of forbidden love, power, and betrayal. Through the intertwined fates of the king, the queen, and Han Lim, the film paints a haunting portrait of a world in which desire cannot be separated from duty, and loyalty is both a virtue and a curse. The characters' tragic end is a reflection of the personal and political consequences of their actions, and the film leaves the viewer with a lingering sense of loss and melancholy. The film's exploration of love in a world defined by power structures is both timeless and deeply rooted in the historical context of the Goryeo Dynasty. It is a film about the complexities of the human heart, the burdens of duty, and the high price of loyalty and love in a world that does not allow for personal happiness or fulfillment.